This podcast replay is brought to you by Pallet Rack City, specializing in knockdown and installations of your warehouse equipment. They also sell used forklifts and dock equipment, largest used rack inventory in South Florida. You want a great rack? Call Eddie right now, 305-887-9212. Pallet Rack City.
Let's do it. We promised you Chris Perkins from The Athletic would be kind enough to join us. You can follow him on Twitter like I and so many others do, at Chris Perk. Perk, how you doing, my friend?
There you go, man. Happy holidays to you. And I'll tell you two things real quick, man. Number one, I've given Brian Flores a lot of credit this season. My story today was going to give these players some credit because, Flores has done a good job coaching, but they have to play. And how this group managed to get 4 victories, I'll never know. That's the first thing. The second thing is, and I might have told you this the last time that I was on, my attitude has changed, and I'm now a win all you can type of guy. And this happened like a couple of weeks ago, and let Chris Greer sort the draft out. I mean, it would be nice
now.
if you had the number one or the number 2 pick.
You're with me.
But that's Chris Greer's job. Flores' job is to win games. Greer's job is to supply Flores with players. And Flo did his job. Now Greer has got to do his job. And yeah, it would be nice if you had the number 1 or 2 pick, but you've got 3 first-rounders this year, 2 first-rounders next year, $100 million. If you can't get this rebuild started, you aren't the guy for the job.
Hey, listen, the little whining bitches yesterday, the little whining tankers were on me yesterday like, well, we won, and now we're out of the top couple picks, and we're not going to get our quarterback, and this is a weak quarterback draft. And then I came back to him and I said, was it a weak quarterback draft the year that Brady fell to the 6th round? Or Wilson fell to the 3rd, or Rodgers at the end of the 1st, or Breeze in the 2nd, or Mahomes at 10th overall, or Big Ben at 8th overall, or Watson at 12th overall, or Carr in the 2nd round, or Dak in the 4th round, or Wentz at 8th overall, Garoppolo in the 2nd round, or Cousins in the 4th, and obviously all I got were crickets after that. And listen, you just said what I've been saying the entire time. You got to lay the groundwork. You got to lay the foundation, the culture. That's what the Heat have done forever, and that's what Flores has to do. It's up to Chris Greer to find the guy, whether it's Kurt Warner packing groceries and playing in the Arena League, and then you find him, or you find Russell Wilson in the 3rd round, or you find Brady in the 6th, or whatever the hell you have to do. Trade for him like you have to trade for Garoppolo. I don't care, dude. That's your job. You got 1,000 picks. You got a whole bunch of money. Go figure it out. But what Flores is doing as a coach, and I said this when I started the show, the tanker can look at all of this negative, and they did during the Twitter thing yesterday. They were like, well, you lost a 23-point lead to the worst team in the league. And I reminded them that the worst team in the league is still the Dolphins, because based on talent, they are the worst team in the league. But if you want to spin it the right way, yesterday there's a young team that lost a 23-point lead and then found their composure to win the game in the overtime. Meanwhile, Seattle had everything on the line and lost to Arizona. So please, don't give me this and start overreacting. The Dolphins actually showed me a little character yesterday by coming back and winning after losing that 23-point lead, because you've been covering the Dolphins, Perk. And in the past, if the Dolphins lose a 23-point lead, what usually happens, Perk?
Yeah, that's it. They fold.
Done.
They fold, and the game is lost.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go. So his team has some character.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you. And look, and we don't know how many of these players are going to be in the league 2 or 3 years from now, but that's beside the point. This is about the 2019 Miami Dolphins, and you do have to tip your hat to these guys, because you're playing guys like Zach Steeler and Lyndon Stevens and Nate Brooks, Shaq Calhoun. I mean, who are these guys, Big O? And Patrick Laird. I mean, for goodness sake, Ryan Fitzpatrick is still your leading rusher, and you managed to win 4 games. So, yeah, my hat is off to the players also, along with Flores and his coaching staff, obviously, but to these players, and maybe a little bit to Chris Greer in this respect, because maybe they have found a couple of guys. But, Greer's job was to do this season on the sheet. and he did that. But Flo made it happen, and these players really made it happen. So it's a shame that we can't celebrate the players a little bit more. I know the season really is not about them. It's about getting the financial books in order and getting as high a draft pick as you can. These players are just kind of collateral damage, but they came in and surprised a lot of people.
Well, I would disagree with you on that one. I think we can celebrate the players because I started off the show talking about how I can't wait for 2020 to watch Devontae Parker become a complete, total number one stud like we all envisioned for next year. I'm looking forward to Gesicki. I'm looking forward to see if Nick Needham can grow on what he did. Maybe he can be a fourth or fifth corner on this team next year. I'm looking at Christian Wilkins for next year and Davin Godchow. Can't wait for X to come back. Isaiah Ford grew up a little bit. Maybe he can become the fifth receiver for them. You know, there's a lot of things personally for individuals because that's what I thought this season was about. It wasn't really about the collective because they weren't going to really achieve anything, but individually there were certain players that you want to build on and you were hoping that they would take that step forward, and I think you have several of those guys that took a step forward, and I'm excited individually about some of those guys. They get me excited about 2020, Perk.
I hear you, but I still don't believe in Devontae.
Really?
I'm looking at his I'm looking at his whole career and this. I'm looking at this as a career best year. I like Devontae. I'm glad that he's matured and he's doing the diet and the acupuncture and all that kind of stuff. But from what I've seen previously, I need to see him do it in back-to-back years.
Okay.
Gesicki, I'm encouraged, but, we'll see. Same with Kalen Balazs, Hakeem Grant, Alan Hearn.
No, wait, whoa. I never mentioned Kalen Balazs.
Well,
I'm not excited about Kalen Balazs.
I'm just saying of all the returnees, because that to me was a big group of developmental guys.
Sure,
because
sure.
You had your 2019 draft class, which by the way had themselves a day yesterday, didn't they? With Wilkins with the sack and the touchdown reception, and Myles Gaskin, even though he got hurt with the touchdown, and Van Ginkel with the fumble recovery, and Gesicki with the 2 touchdowns. Even Dieter did a respectable job against Geno Atkins for a lot of that game. That draft class did a good job. But that they're part of the season, the individuals you're talking about, the reclamation projects,
right.
We've gone over those before, right? Josh Rosen and Robert Kimdichie and Taco Charlton and Mark Walton and Alan Hearn. A couple of them have fallen off, but you found Alan Hearns. We'll see what happens with Taco. The returnees, and I include Bobby McCain in there. He had a pretty decent year. I'm not convinced on enough of those guys. But I'm waiting. I'm not negative. Like, I'm not poo-pooing Gesicki or poo-pooing Devontae. I remain wait and see on a lot of these guys that are coming back. That's all.
How about Ferris State's own Zach Seiler, baby, and that dominant performance yesterday? That was actually pretty fun to watch. That dude just
he's
come
a high
out of
energy
nowhere.
guy, man. Yeah, dude. And look, right. You got Calvin Munson and Jamal Davis out there at linebacker. How did these guys win? It really to me. My hat is really off to them. And again, nobody's going to mistake them for a good team. Like you said, they're going to be at or near the bottom of the league in many major statistical categories. But you won 4 of your last 8 and you scored 75 points in your last 2 home games. That's really good considering where they started in those first 2 games.
Yeah, that's what I also said in that first hour, that if I told you, where are you now, Dolph fan, after the second week of the season and where you are now in week 16, you have to feel better about your franchise. You have to feel better about the direction. You were fearful of this entire season, and when you look at the big picture, the season really hasn't been as bad as people thought it would be. Those first 2 weeks, if you thought that was going to be the season, then yeah, it would have been a freaking nightmare for 17 weeks. But now that we're in week 16 and we've seen what's developed and the wins and the competitiveness and that they've been in a lot of these games, you have to say that overall it turned out to be a much better season than most people expected.
100%. 100%, Big O, because and look, we now know that you face two of the better teams in the league in the opening 2 weeks in Baltimore and New England. But nobody loses 59-10 and 43-0, and lives to tell about it, Big O. And that's what we thought this team was going to be historically bad. And I agree with you 100%. Now you've won 4 of your last 8, and look, nobody's expecting them to go up to Foxborough and win, especially when the Patriots do have something on the line. It's really been a positive season. And yeah, you should feel, Dolphins fans should feel encouraged about the future. You can nitpick and say, Fitz isn't our quarterback of the future, and we still don't have a run. Whatever, Big O. These guys exceeded expectations. When you look at where you were in week 3 and with your expectations of this team and where they are now, I agree with you 100%. You got to feel positive.
Yeah, it's how about this? When it comes to Fitz, I didn't really think much of it at the beginning of the year. I didn't think it was that important, but obviously he's grown on me. And to me, I think it's a priority, whether you draft a quarterback or 2 quarterbacks. I don't care whether you have 1, 2, or 3 young guys. I want to see Fitz back next year, being either the starter or the mentor, but the guy that is there for the rest of those guys. What do you think the chances are of Fitz coming back?
Very high. Fitz started hinting, and we started asking him about this maybe about 4 weeks ago, roughly a month ago, and he's never really fully immersed himself in the answer. He said, "I have to talk to my family. I'll have to see." But listen, some people saw that Fitz's 7 kids were on the field with him and his wife before the game. They still live in Tampa. He still seems as though he wants to play next season. And if he does, Miami makes the most sense for a couple of reasons. Number one, you're near your family. He's not going back to Jacksonville or going to back to Tampa. He's not going to Jacksonville. The family remains in Tampa, short flight, relatively short car ride away. He goes up there sometimes on Tuesdays, which is the player's off day, and goes to see the family and comes back on Wednesday morning. So you've got the convenience. But then number 2, from both his standpoint and the team's standpoint, he's a good plan B. Whether he is your starter or whether he is your mentor, he gives you the flexibility to draft Tua, and if Tua isn't ready, you start Fitz. You draft Justin Herbert. If Justin Herbert isn't ready, like Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson, you start Fitz. So, look, I'm not opposed to keeping Josh Rosen around here either. Until he gets some trade value, he's not going to do you any good trading him for a 6th-round pick. So I would have draftee, Fitz, and Rosen here next year, and whatever happens with Jake Rudock happens with him. But yeah, I would definitely keep Fitz around because it's all good. There's no bad to keeping Fitz around. He's not the type of backup where he's going to be a distraction. He's going to be a help. Now, there's going to be a certain amount of fans, obviously, who play Fitz, but it's kind of like the play Rosen crowd. Flores will do whatever Flores thinks is right, and based on this season, you have to kind of give Flo the benefit of the doubt. So, yeah, I bring Fitz back for whatever role turns out to be the role.
Chris Perkins, of course, from The Athletic. Make sure you catch his work there at The Athletic MIA. Subscribe, man. It's a joke. You get the entire country and all the local teams for just a couple dollars a month. It is an absolute joke. Subscribe to The Athletic. Perk, I said this over the weekend on one of the podcasts that if you draft Tua, so let's say they're at 5 now, and Tua falls to you there, and you want to take him, I think you've got to go Washington, Shanahan style, or Jimmy Johnson back in the day. Jimmy wasn't convinced with Troy Aikman. He deferred to his scouting staff, so he covered his ass by getting Steve Walsh in the supplemental. Shanahan was not convinced by RG3. That was a Snyder pick. So he drafts Cousins in the 4th round to cover his ass. If I'm the Dolphins and I'm drafting Tua and I've got 7,000 picks, I'm taking another quarterback in this draft, whether it's Jacob Eason, whether it's Anthony Gordon. I don't care. I'm going to take another project somewhere in that 3rd or 4th rounds. Your thoughts on that?
Sure. I have no problem with that. I have no problem with that if they draft Justin Herbert or somebody who they feel could start as a rookie. because that's a large part of what this rebuild is about, is finding that quarterback. And in a year where you do have so many resources, in a year where the expectations be low, and I mean the expectations going into 2020, nobody expects them to compete for a playoff spot. You're still kind of playing with house money. You still got a little bit of time to figure stuff out. So this is the time that you do it. I think it's worth. I really think it's worth taking a risk somewhere in the first round. On whoever, whether it's Tua or whether it's trading up or down, or whether it's getting somebody like a Bryce Hall, the kid out of Virginia who is injured, or who is the other linebacker at Dylan Moses from out, whatever. Whether it's a quarterback, whether it's a trade, I think it's a year to take a risk in the first round. And then beyond that, sure, I would back up my first round quarterback pick with somebody in the third or fourth round, because that's a lot of what this rebuild is about. Is that is the one single move that you can make that will do the most for this rebuild, is finding that quarterback. Finding a great pass rusher is great, and finding a great running back or whatever, another shutdown corner, that's all great. But no single move does you better, does more for you than that quarterback, as we all know. If you want to double up on it this year, or if you want to go back-to-back this year, next year, I'm fine with all of that.
Hey, what was Gaskin's injury, man? How is he? Because it's a shame. The kid was looking pretty good in that game yesterday, man.
Yeah, all I know so far still is a leg injury. It looked like it might have been a knee or an ankle, the way he got twisted up. And I didn't keep an eye on him when he came off the field, so I didn't see if they, were working on any specific area. But
you were not working the binoculars? You were not working the binoculars? Come on, dude. You're always on those binoculars.
Dude, I am all over those injuries. Who's going into the flu
video?
And I did see Gaskin getting carted off to the locker room, but I didn't. Yeah, I didn't have a chance to get the phone up there. Yeah, I'm all over those binoculars. You know that, man. But yeah, I fell down on the job yesterday for that part of it.
I'm shocked. Yeah, you were probably focused on a babe in the stands or something like that. I get it.
Well, you know what? There weren't a whole lot of distractions in the stands yesterday.
No.
That place was fairly empty.
I was talking about this before you came on, Perk, and it's sad, but I think I'm right. Maybe I'm wrong. It won't be the first time today. It'll be, the 100th time today. But it shows you how much we're removed from that incredible accomplishment, because 20 years ago, 30 years ago, you celebrate the undefeated team, and it's a bad season, and normally you don't have a lot of those under Shula, but let's say you would. The place would have been jam-packed. They would have celebrated the 72 team, and then in the third quarter, a lot of them would have left. But out of respect, they would have shown up. We're 50 years removed from that, couple of generations now. It just doesn't connect with a lot of people, and you can tell, and the stands were empty. And I thought that was a little sad about that moment, that they deserved that full stadium. But, man, we're talking about a half a century ago that this accomplishment was made practically. And that's why I think we saw what we saw yesterday and why it was so empty. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you know what? I've been trying to kind of get my arms around the Dolphins' relationship with their fans for a while, and look, really, my hat is off to Dolphins fans. I think they've been the most loyal in the 22 years that I've lived here. I moved here in 97. I think they've overall been more loyal than Heat fans, football fans, Panthers fans, Marlins fans. I think that they've showed up through thick and thin, and they have very little to show for it. But at the same time, and maybe you recall this, Big O, if I'm not mistaken, both of those, the playoff games in 2000 and 2001 were blacked out locally.
Yes.
Remember when they had the old blackout rule? And so those were good teams with Zach Thomas and Jason Taylor and Wanstead coaching. I mean, Beeler was there, but it's kind of a complicated relationship that the Dolphins have had with their fans. When you consider those two playoff games were blacked out in the midst of decent years. But I would agree with you. The 72 team and these fans, I don't think that they really relate to these fans because it was so long ago and because so much of the glory has eroded. Maybe if they'd have, done like the Heat and won a couple of championships, and I think maybe the excitement would still be there to honor a fellow championship team. But it's been so long since the Dolphins have been champions that, yeah, I think even the appreciation, or I don't know if you would use the term respect, but yeah, I think the attachment to that team has faded a great deal.
No doubt. Perk, what are you working on The Athletic this week, headed into the final week of the regular season?
Well, I probably should not curse myself by advertising this, but, at The Athletic, we've had a little bit of success with guys who somebody came just across the story talking to Josh McCown and whether he could recall every player that he's thrown a touchdown pass to. So he did the story, and it did great. So I'm trying that with Ryan Fitzpatrick. And he seemed really fired up about the idea, and he's naming off some names. He's like, oh yeah, Torrey Holt and the late Cedric Benson, and he's naming. And I'm like, wow. And he's like, yeah, that'll be fun. We had talked about that time that I don't know if you recall this. LeBron rattled off every possession of the last. But
yes,
so I was talking to Fitz about that, and he was like, yeah, I think that was a little overblown because pretty much any quarterback could do that. And I was like, yeah, golfers. Have you ever heard of golfers? He was like, yeah, I've heard golfers do it. And so I was like, so what do you think? And he was like, no, that's a great idea. I would love to do it. So we haven't been able to fit in the time for the interview, but I've gone back through some of his touchdowns at the game. So that's what I'm working on. I'm trying to sit down with Fitz this week and get him to recall. I think he was at 205 touchdown passes going into yesterday. I don't know how many receivers that is. He had figured it might be about 50 or 60 different receivers, but that's what I'm working on. I'm hoping that I can sit down with Fitz and we can test his power of recall, and he can tell us a little about those passes and how much he can recall about the different guys he's thrown touchdown passes to.
Right, that's great stuff. So, hey, am I going to see you over at the East-West Shrine or the Senior Bowl?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are, man.
Nice.
So I don't know when I'm going to arrive. I was planning, if the Dolphins coached, I was going to arrive there on Monday. I still might do that because I think some players are available on Tuesday morning. But yeah, you'll 100% see me, man. We'll hang out.
You got it. No, we'll be broadcasting live at both the team hotels. So we'll have wall-to-wall coverage now, baby. So we're gonna go to an extreme that we've never gone to because now we have all the flexibility that we've never had. So it's a beautiful thing.
Yep.
I no longer have to have a discussion with a program director that has no freaking clue about what's going on and tell, hey, I want to talk to this quarterback. His name is Anthony Gordon. And then he's going to go, who's that? Well, it's a quarterback out of Washington State. He'll go in the middle of the oh, no, nobody knows him. Well, I don't have to do that anymore now. I can bring on Anthony Gordon. Yes, exactly.
Yep. No corporate shackles, there you go.
It's a beautiful thing, my brother. Hey, Perk, thank you for taking some time. As always, follow him on Twitter at Chris Perk. More importantly, subscribe to The Athletic and support him and all those great writers there at The Athletic. They do all a fantastic job covering our local sports. What were you going to say, Bill? What were you saying?
Happy holidays, Chris.
Yes. And
Merry Christmas, man.
There you go. Bill wants to say happy holidays.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Merry Christmas and happy holidays and happy New Year. Hey, hopefully y'all are good Southerners and you have your black-eyed peas on New Year's Day.
Yes, sir. We definitely will.
There you go.
All right, my brother.
There you go, man. It brings you good luck for the year, man. It's a Southern superstition.
It's a beautiful thing. All right, Perk, you be good. Thank you.
All right, guys. Talk to you.
You got it. There you go. Chris Perkins, man, from The Athletic. Follow him on Twitter at Chris Perk.